Hey guys, Walt Wagner here with TAV. Today we're getting ready to send this one home again, and this is the second time we've built this truck for a good reason. We had this in our booth at Overland Expo a couple years ago, last one in Flagstaff, and it had a completely different setup on the back, which is what I'm pretty excited to show to you guys. So what we're doing here is we're going to start from the front and go to the back, because this is our first official walk around on this truck. A couple other people had kind of covered it briefly, but we're going to go front to back on it, and I'll fill you in on kind of what makes this truck special and what's a little bit different about it now. For the front bumper on this one, we're running the CBI aluminum front bumper, and this thing's been bashed on pretty good, so it's proven itself nice and sturdy, and it's housing the Come Up 12.5 sealed Gen 2, so it's a completely sealed unit. And we kind of mount the control box in a way that it's kind of hidden away. So all you have is kind of exposed is your control mount on the front. That's actually a secondary, because these winches are wireless and you have a small fob style controller for that. So that's usually what people would use first, and then you can use that secondary, which would override it. For recovery equipment on this, the Seal Gen 2 winch comes with a synthetic line, but we will sometimes run the Factor 55 Ultra Hook and Fair Lead on these, just because you get so much use out of that particular tool. For lighting, we're running the Baja Designs Squadron Pros for the fog lights in a driving combo pattern, and the amber light bar is the Baja Designs S8 in a driving combo pattern as well. The factory fog lights are set up to the factory fog light switch, and then we have separate switches for the individual lights. For the larger lights, the two ambers on the outside these are the LP6, the Baja Designs LP6. So you have a high and a low beam on both LP6 and the LP9, and that's pretty nice to have adjustable light within these lights. And you have a really nice side light on these two that shines out here. There's also a pretty cool little amber backlight when you're just in your running light mode. We found these to be so effective that we actually changed from a 50-inch ARC series light bar Onyx 6 up on the roof down to the LP9 and LP6 combo down here. That's what we've been running on all of our own trucks, and it's working out real well. Diving right into the engine compartment here, we've been working with Matt over at Off Grid Engineering for quite a while on his dual battery systems. So this is a split system. We're running the Odyssey Group 34 batteries in here and on both sides. So that kind of splits the weight over each fender rather than two batteries right here. And it gives us a little more room to work, because all these trucks are kind of unique, so we do a lot of custom wiring and custom layouts. So you'll see separate breakers and solenoids and things like that. We have a red arc right here that we use for a DC to DC charger. And we also have another red arc that is charging the camper as well, and you'll see that later. But that's kind of what we're doing with our battery systems in here. Part of our particular dual battery setup, we're trying to make it as all-inclusive as possible that incorporates everything that's important. That means charging the batteries as well. The factory alternator in these vehicles, especially these third-gen trucks, wasn't designed to run two Group 34 batteries. It's designed to charge just a single factory battery. So by doing that, we're putting a much higher amperage output charging alternator from DC power, and that so far is working really well. But there's also a tune within the computer of the truck that needs to be modified to run that and allow that alternator to charge at a higher output for these batteries. So there's a lot more to it than just slapping two batteries in here and getting after it. So the starting batteries do nothing but start the truck. Everything else is split off, and everything auxiliary goes to that secondary battery. As far as like our light management, for all of our lights that are single position, on or off, or dual position, we run it off of an S-Pod. So all of our auxiliary stuff comes off of the S-Pod, and this one is a Bantam. You can run this by your phone via Bluetooth, which is actually pretty handy if you're in the camper or you're away from your truck. You can have your switch panel up on your phone, and you can turn side lights on. You can basically run any of your auxiliary components off of your phone as well. There's a control panel for this inside the truck on the dash and inside the camper, so he can control it from both places and from his phone. The kind of bread and butter of this thing. With these trucks weighing more, obviously, than they were stock, we found it really nice to add some horsepower. You guys have probably seen it in a lot of my other videos. We've been doing the Magnuson Supercharger. This is one of the earlier versions for the 3rd gen truck, and this thing is great. Running the highway with proper tuning from Magnuson. With this particular setup, we're not in the internals of the engine. We're not doing super crazy engine tuning on these things. We run the reliable tune from Magnuson for this unit that is also appropriate to the tire size and the gear ratio that we're running, and this truck will run very comfortably down the highway. The particular tune we're using holds your gears longer, so you're not hunting for gears all the time, and the engine has the power it needs to not have to hunt for gears all the time. So this has been a very nice thing to have on these 3rd gen trucks. It makes it much more fun to drive. As far as the wrap goes on all of our vehicles, we've been working with Mike over at Revive Wraps here in Albuquerque. And it seems like he can always get us in, and he works very late nights to get us in and out of there in time, because it's always last minute for us. But this wrap has been on this truck for almost 2 years now, I think. It's he's got a hood blackout here with just a matte black, but then the color of this is a matte metallic dark gray, I believe. And it's got scratches in it. You can see it gets used pretty hard. This truck gets driven pretty hard, but you can see how well it's holding up. For a vinyl wrap, I think it's been doing extremely well. And you can see the transition between the factory steel hood and the McNeil Racing fiberglass front fenders. This fender is about a 4-inch bulge from factory width, because the suspension is 2 inches wider per side for this particular setup. So the reason for doing this is we're not lifting these trucks really high at all. We're trying to keep them very low with a large tire, so this wheel opening is much larger and it's wider to stay over the tire and keep the aesthetics looking as factory as possible. So what we do is we install it, we trim everything, make everything fit like it should. Then we have the molding of the fender flare Line-X, so it actually looks like a separate fender flare, but it's all molded into the fender itself. Then we have the wrap brought down to it and trimmed from there. Below that, we hand make these inner fender liners. They're made out of ABS, and we mold them to the truck as the truck is here. We can't build these and send them out. We have a couple templates, but everything is slightly different. So we will cut them, install them, and hand mold these into the truck as we're building it. Suspension on this truck is kind of what our new stage 3 would look like. This is the long travel version, so stage 2 and stage 3 is very much the same with the inclusion of other components. As far as suspension goes, we're looking at Total Chaos's +2 long travel system and King's custom coilovers that we have valved and sprung with basically the shock's own build sheet as we're building this truck from King. So when we know what the truck's going to be carrying, we'll order it specifically to a certain valving and a certain spring rate when it comes to the coilover. Then we can kind of go from there once we have it in our hands. So this one's running the King coilover with a high-speed adjustment valve and the 700-pound spring in the front due to the weight of the truck, and it's balancing the truck out really nice. While we're putting these suspension systems in, we're doing some stuff to the frame to reinforce the extra leverage of larger tires and longer travel stuff on these, as well as weight of the truck. So we're doing the cam tab gussets that you see in the alignment to keep your cam tabs, your cams or alignment cams in place when you side load the suspension, to side load the wheel. It's much thicker, and it's actually welded into the frame of the truck rather than the 3 little spot welds from the factory. We're also running a spindle gusset top to bottom on the spindle just to add a little bit extra strength there. Chrome poly axle shafts from Total Chaos. And on this particular truck, the reason this would be considered a stage 3 is it's got the big brake kit from SOS Performance. It is a massive 6-piston caliper that's up front and a stop tech rotor up front. And we'll get to the rear in a minute. That's kind of what makes this whole big brake system special. And as far as gearing goes in this truck, we're running a 488 gear with ARB lockers front and rear. And calibrating the speedometer with the supercharger And the gear ratio of this truck drives absolutely amazing everywhere. Highway, we just drove it to him from California for our studio shoot, and this thing did amazing the entire trip. What you'll see for wheels and tires is the original set of 35, 1250, 17 Toyo open country mud terrains on this truck. And you can obviously see with the Method 701 wheel on here that it's got some pretty good scratches on it. You can tell this thing definitely gets wheeled. It gets driven very long trips off-road. The tires are holding up extremely well. They balance out really well, and we've been real happy with this wheel and tire package. The nice thing about the bead grip, the 701 and 704 wheels that you'll see like this have the bead grip technology on the inside of the wheel, and that works so well from having a bead of your tire come off that it makes it hard to even change tires on a tire machine, because that bead grips the inner bead of the tire so well that the tire machines can actually have a hard time with breaking that free. So it definitely works as far as the Trail Series wheels go. Those of you with a keen eye will notice there's no skid plate on this truck, because we were servicing the front end when this truck came back, making sure everything's good to go, and the skid plate, the CBI aluminum IFS skid plate's in the other bay. But you'll see all the other ones up under the truck. For protection underneath this truck, he's running the CBI off-road aluminum skids all the way back. So it's the IFS skid, transmission transfer case skids, and it really protects all of that stuff, even your exhaust crossover pipe down there. Moving on back, what you'll also see is this steel LRA long-range fuel tank, and that's a 32-gallon tank in a Tacoma. It's really nice to be able to carry that much fuel in the factory location. It's a complete replacement tank, and they're very strong. Moving to the rear axle, we're going to touch on the gears again. This is a diff that we've been using for the Stage 2 Plus and the Stage 3 trucks, just because of the weight that they'll see, and some of them have a little more horsepower, but that's usually not the case. Most of it's for the weight and the strength of the gears. This is a Billet third member from Nitro Gear, and it's a Ford 9-inch. So it's designed to work with a gear ratio that will work with a Toyota front diff. So this is a 489 gear ratio, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, I probably will. It should be a 488 or something very close to the 488 in the front. But it is running an ARB rear locker, and it's running a 35 spline chromoly axle shaft built by Currie. And it's a Currie F9 housing that is a custom width for this. Here's the other end of the axle here, the other side of the axle. It's a Currie F9 housing like I mentioned before, but we've got a custom fill cap that you can actually look down inside the diff and look at your gears, look at the oil, fill the oil, drain the oil if you need to, even though there's a drain plug in the bottom. But the way we set these axles up, we TIG weld all of our own tabs and small brackets and things like that we need for the brake lines, ABS lines, hard brake lines, and everything else. But sometimes, like in this truck, as you'll see, the airbag, the floating airbag perch on top of the spring, that is a Firestone airbag with a Daystar bucket, air spring bucket there. So this truck has full articulation, and you know, if you needed to, if you're going uphill or something, you can add a little more spring rate in the back just to kind of help. But we want the leaf springs to do their job. The U-bolt flip kit is from Archive Garage, and that gets your U-bolts pointed up away from the underside of the axle. So if you look at the underside of the axle, you can also see where we've welded on our lower shock mounts, and we've rotated that up into the front of the axle as much as we can to keep the underside of the axle as free and clear of debris as possible. And that kind of points over to the disc brake conversion we're using from SOS Performance. It's a StopTech rotor and a StopTech caliper, and it's their 4Runner backing plate, which is far thicker than the 4Runner unit, but it allows the Tacoma axle to run 4Runner style disc brakes, and we can run a unit bearing in there that allows all of your speed sensors, ABS, and everything to work properly like it did from the factory. For rear springs, we ended up modifying these slightly, and that's the nice thing about working with Alcan Spring up in Colorado. We have a cut card for every set of leaf springs that we make, or that they make for us for these builds. So this truck had a very different weight to it when we first built it. So after the camper and everything went on it, I wanted it, and driving it quite a bit, a couple thousand miles, we could see how we wanted to dial in our spring rate. So we were able to add or replace, actually just replace, a couple leafs with a heavier spring rate to it, and we actually went into the shocks as well and revalved those. So everything worked together nicely, and it's been a great improvement. And what we use for strength in the back is Archive Garage's shackle hanger. They're hammer shackle hanger and hammer shackle. And you can see the cross tube in here that supports each side of the frame together to making everything quite a bit tighter in the back. Another view of the outside section of the hammer shackle and hammer shackle hanger. You can see that you could actually come down off of something and hit a rock or an obstacle pretty hard with this, and it's not going anywhere. It's there to support the spring, and it's there to keep the frame from wanting to twist under a load, under heavy articulation or anything else. It's a much, much stronger and heavier duty piece from the factory stamped shackle hangers. Rounding out the rear suspension on these, on the stage 1 through 3, is the Total Chaos shock towers that allows us to run a 12-inch travel shock whether you're on a stage 1 or a stage 3. We set them up all the same. We do valve them correct for what the truck's going to be used for, but what you see there with the Total Chaos shock tower, 12-inch travel king with remote reservoir and adjuster, compression adjuster, and limiting straps is how you'll see that. The CBI sliders on this truck protect the rocker panels really well, but it kind of serves a couple different purposes. As you might be able to see in some of these shots, some of the scrapes and stuff underneath them, you can support the entire weight of this truck with those sliders. So if you come down over a rock or something like that, or you need to lift the side of the truck with a high lift jack or something, they're there to support that. But these are also the flat version with the fill plates in them that you can stand on and access stuff on the roof. And there are other versions of this where you can have a slight taper to them to where they're beveled up, angled up, as opposed to just flat. For roof storage on this truck, he's running the full-size, full-length Prince-U roof rack, Prince-U Designs roof rack, and it fits really nice underneath the 5010 camper. So that's where we've run all the wiring for his work lights on the sides, which are the Baja Designs, and that's an X2 Pro, but the work scene light pattern, beam pattern, is very, very wide. So it's a really bright work light off both sides of the truck. And on top for traction, he wanted his max tracks to be really readily available. And the way I've been running these has been really nice to do is just with some front runner stratchets on some eye bolts on the roof rack, because if they get covered in mud or snow or debris, they don't want to stack really tight together. So we've just been using them with 2 stratchets, just undo them, take them down, use them, put them back up, and you can worry about cleaning them out later on. The length of the roof rack was changed from the half cab, like the access cab, to the full length, because he can put a table in the roof rack below the camper, an exterior table between the two, and there's plenty of room. So that's still usable space underneath the camper. So introducing the Wanderlost project. This is our client's company, and this is a 5010 camper that we've done here on a Tacoma short bed. It is a flatbed. It's basically a 2-piece system. So you have a flatbed conversion, which is from this seam down. That stays on the truck. You've got cabinets, you've got, nice bit of storage in the back here, straps, whatever you want to do. But all of this stays in place, but this is removable. We set all the plumbing and heat, everything up in this to where you can make a few disconnections inside, put a 1x1 piece of tubing here and use a standard camper jack or a lift at your house or shop or whatever you want, and you can lift this up and then drive out from underneath, and you have a flatbed truck. It's all aluminum. This whole thing's aluminum. And we'll go through several very custom things that we've done to this, because this was a very new platform in the US. So certain things we wanted to see, kind of like the skid plates we designed for this. It's a steel skid plate that is pretty much seamless. It's fastened from the inside, but there's nothing here to drag on anything, and it'll also protect the box. As you can see, you hit a tree with this before we designed the skid plates. It was something we wanted to do but he had a good bit of time in this truck to be able to kind of test things, see how he wanted it to work. So we were able to get these skids in here really good and strong. You should take a pretty solid hit, protect all the aluminum components above it. So this client is an avid mountain biker and road biker, and he's getting ready to use this truck all over the East Coast to do a bunch of riding. And I'm using my bike rack and my bike to kind of show as an example here of how all of this is set up and how I wanted this to be. There's a drawer here that I wanted him to still be able to use. So you can access this drawer completely with equipment, straps, whatever he needs, camping gear, stuff like that. With the spare tire in its location, the bike rack in its location. He has the single bike version of this one-up USA rack. So mine is a 2-bike. He has a single bike. So the way this entire thing is going to operate, to let the tire down and get in the camper, you can take the bike off, fold it up, and you can still use that drop-down tire carrier as your stairwell to get up. And I'll break that out here in a second to show you how it's going to work. But little plug for YT. This is my YT copper. I love this thing. This is a size medium bike, so you can see kind of where the grip comes in. The handlebars come in at the height of the roof, so it's really not much higher than the roof at all, so you don't really have to worry too much about it hitting anything or being in the wind or wind drag or anything like that. But it's still high enough off the ground to where if you needed to go off-road somewhere, you can go anywhere you want to go, not have to worry about your bike rack or your bike or anything hitting stuff down low to the ground or even getting rear-ended by anything. So as you can see, this thing's like shoulder height to me. I'm 5'7", so it's up off the ground, out of harm's way. I'm going to take this off real quick and show you how the rear tire carrier works. That's kind of our pride and joy there. So the way we were able to incorporate this particular bike rack to a receiver hitch type mount is Rooster made a drop down 2-inch, so we welded the 2-inch receiver to the inside of the tire carrier so we could mount a bike rack specifically to it. But in order to get the height the way we wanted, we made a drop down here, and these 4 bolts on the one-up USA rack, we just disconnected that from their receiver and we bolted that into our own piece. So this can still be operated up and down like it normally would, like this, you know, to get it out of the way if you don't have a bike on there. And that way, you know, it still works like it intended, like one-up USA designed it for a regular receiver. We just basically made our own drop down for it. And for here, it's a standard hitch pin that goes inside, and then it's a bolt that puts positive pressure on the inside of this to keep it from moving at all. The only movement you'll get is probably out of the bike itself. On the back end here, you can see obviously there's no bumper, so we pretty much had to make our own. This is a factory Toyota bumper that was very heavily modified and strengthened and boxed in with some solid material here to mount in the factory location, but it goes straight across rather than dipping down. We put 3/4 inch recovery points, 3/4 inch Shackle recovery points here, S2 Pro reverse lights that are on their own switch and that's also a work scene pattern. So it's really wide beam pattern because you have your factory camera right here. So if you have all that light back here, you can see with your factory camera on your head unit. So this truck has propane heat in it, and it's held in place, it's hard mounted in place by an Expedition Essentials mount that is lockable. This particular setup is plumbed inside, and you can turn the regulator on and off by the S-Pod or by your cell phone that is held under this custom cover that protects you. You know, it's there to protect your regulator and everything from a hit. But all of that is run and plumbed inside the camper, so it can be turned on for, you know, before you get to camp. The heater heats this thing up so fast that you really don't need to do that. But if you're inside and you want to turn it on, it opens the regulator electronically from your S-Pod. So something that we've really been happy with is this tire carrier that we designed specifically for the 5010 camper. This operates everything. This is your onboard air quick connect. So there's a tank under the truck. This is your air tank pressure. So if you want to air your tires up or down, you can operate by here, just from here. But this turns air off to the tire carrier itself. That's how you operate it up and down. So now it's on. This toggle switch brings it up or down. So now we'll move around. So if you're going to get into the back of your camper, we've got these pins. You can pull this, just let this hang here. There's a little magnet on the back of this so you don't lose your cotter pin. You just stick it in right here, and that's its little home until you go to hook it back up. Same thing for the other side. The cool thing about this is it's got 2 pivot points, so you don't have anything wiggling side to side. You can just let that hang, put it on your magnet. Now this is just being held here by air pressure. You can come back over to your toggle and push down, nice and easy. Let all your air out. And then you can get in the back of your truck. So when you do go in the back of your truck, this will now be your step to go into the truck. So your drawer opens and closes with the tire up and with it down. So if you do have camping equipment, things like that in here, you can still access this stuff. This is a table that Goose Gear makes a bamboo version of this with a little cutout in it, but our client wanted it to be more of a flat table, so he used some UHMW, like a cutting board material, and kind of set it up to where it just, you take it out and you just hang it right here on the side of the truck. Super, super convenient. And we'll run through the interior here in just a second. But you've got an interior light that comes on at night right here, and it's white, 3 different modes, or red for night vision. It kind of helps, you know, keep a nice light at night without it being overbearing. Okay, what we'll do is I'll start from the driver's side of the truck, open the hatches, kind of talk about what's in this hatch, and then we'll set the camper up and you kind of see how effortless and kind of easy this whole thing is. So right here is a fresh water fill right here, and you can drain it from here, or you could drain your sink and everything from here. So you can just put a standard garden hose right on this and run it down and out, because there is a sink inside. So your tank is behind this that runs to your pump and everything, but it's all kind of closed off and put away. Now, Goose Gear makes all of this in here, and it's really beautiful stuff. All of the latches, I mean, everything, it's kind of like a boat. You know, campers are a lot like a boat. So you got little gas struts that open, a gas strut that opens it up. You can pull this in or out from outside and inside. These little bins and things like that. Same thing for this side. You could have maybe some utensils or something in here. You can pull this in from this side or that side. This is your hot shower. So you can plug your shower in right here and have an outdoor shower, hot and cold water. And you also have that same light right here, white and red. We'll leave that one open. Coming around the back, tire carrier is already down, so your stairwell is already in place. Put this up, kind of show you how this table goes. It's super easy. It's a really good sized table. Some of this is a little custom for, you know, kind of how we set this up. There's a little eye bolt right here. Just clip it on. Here and here. So now you have prep table right here. You can turn your light on at night, red light if you need to. Then, actually I'll go ahead and do the other side. Just to kind of see everything. This is your shore tie. You just plug your plug into this. So if you come into a campground or something like that, you can just plug right into this. This camper has a complete Victron system. It's right behind this panel right here that Goose Gear puts in. It's really nicely laid out. There's a lithium-ion battery in here, and that's why we have the red arc that is in here to charge from a Group 34 to a lithium-ion battery. It allows it to get the charge it needs. This is more storage that you can access on the inside. Some Step 22 soft bags that were very, very nice. Since we put the Propex heater in here, we had some duct work that we had to route through here and pump into the camper. So Rooster made this sheet metal box that we line X to match this. So you can put gear in here, stack on here. You don't have to worry about crushing your duct work. And it makes for a nice stackable area. The client put a WeBoost Drive X system in here that you can deploy once you get to camp or wherever. You can set this outside and have a good internet service or cell signal booster. Moving back around to the front, you can kind of see how you would get into the camper. Just step on this and work your way up to loosen your straps. 2 straps, 1 on each side. And then you can just push the camper straight up. There's a little dining table in here that you can rotate out of the way. And then the bed goes up. That's pretty much as easy as it can get to get inside this thing. This truck does have a full tank of water in it. It's about 22 gallons, and you can kind of see how the stance of the truck isn't affected too much by it. It's got a nice balance to it. We are going to go get the truck weighed as soon as we can get. We just got a lot of the stuff finished up pretty much last Friday. Today's Tuesday. Yesterday a couple things were finished up, and we brought it over here to clean up and shoot. So we're going to take it out, do some driving, fine tune a couple things and get it weighed, and then we'll have a legitimate weight on this thing. So one thing we've been doing to a lot of these vehicles, I really don't like car alarm systems. I think they create a lot more problems than it's worth, and they just make a lot of noise when you don't want it to make noise. So what we do is, with a truck like any of the trucks that we build, if somebody's wanting to protect that investment, we work with Revelco, and this is not an alarm. It's a disability device. So if you want to disable the vehicle, you still have power to your vehicle. You pull your fob out. Every single one of these trucks is unique. So you get 2 of these when we do this, and it kills your system. I'm not going to go through the details of it right here, but it kills the inability for the truck to start and drive when you have this with you, but you still have power. So when you're going to go, it's key-weight a certain way. You just can turn it to where it kind of lines up. We usually try to have the Revelco where you can read it, and then it should just drop right in. Yeah, like that. The only switches that we really use for lighting that are not hooked up to the S-Pod unit are these 3-position switches. Center is off, and these are for the LP9 and LP6s. So center is off, low beam is down, and high beam is up. And it's a good positive solid click. So you can find the switch real easy. Low, high, all these are set up to specifically for the LP9 and LP6s. This is the HD switch panel for the S-Pod Bantam. And the reason I like an actual push button as opposed to a touchscreen at certain times, especially if you're behind the wheel, is because you can reach up and know which light, you start to remember which light goes to which switch. So if this is my very first switch, I can reach up and look at and not even have to look at it. I can keep my eyes on the road, look at what I'm doing in my mirrors if I want to turn on my backup lights. So you can bump it once, it turns this on, and then you can bump it again to turn your lights on. Just hit it again to turn it off. Right here it shows the red light. That means the air compressor is engaged, but you can't hear it running because there's a pressure switch that shuts it off. So if I want to turn that air compressor off, you just shut it off. This will go to sleep by itself, but we also can run our ARB lockers front and rear and our ARB compressor from here as well. So that's kind of the beauty of that. This can also be run off of your cell phone like I was talking about before. There is a touch screen that is just a smooth screen, and it has a switch panel that looks like this, but it's just a smooth screen inside the camper because you don't have to be looking at where you're going down the road. I just don't like to take my eyes off the road and have to focus on seeing a button where you have to keep your eyes on it the entire time you're putting your finger up on it. Whereas at nighttime, you can just reach up here, feel where the first switch is or the last switch on the top or bottom, and you know where it's at by feel. As you climb up into the camper, you can see the layout of how many electrical components that there actually are in here. You've got a really nice layout of USB points, USB charging points. The breaker panel and everything is on the far right, and with multiple plugs, there's a power strip in there. You got more areas for charging things than you could ever really know what to do with. You got to swivel your table out of the way if you want, or you can just undo it and slide it completely off its mount and kind of stow it somewhere if you wanted. Set it up on the bed and push the bed up if you got more than like 1 or 2 people in here. Everything is very, very easy to operate and easy to move around as you need, and kind of make some more room. It's got a front loading Dometic fridge, kind of like a little dorm room style size fridge. Works great. The plenty of counter space when the bed's up too, so you got a lot of counter space with that table and the counter, and then you've got your small sink over there on the left. And then all the drawers that I opened on the outside you can access on the inside with an opening lid from the top that opens, and then also from the sides, the insides. So you've got a little utensil tray that you can open from the inside if you needed to without actually having to get out of the truck. So the Alucab awning, the 270, the shadow awning from Alucab, is probably one of our favorite awnings we've used to date. There's a lot of other companies doing 270 awnings, and I'm sure they all shine in their own way, but this awning's proven itself to us for several years now, and it's a freestanding awning. It supports itself. You simply just unzip the cover and flip it over the top. Then you just undo the Velcro straps and walk it around. It sets itself up. You have one center stanchion that kind of makes it elevated in the center, so if it's raining or anything like that, it just runs off. But you just hook a strap in the other end and pull it tight, and that's it. If it does get a little bit windy, then you can put one center leg down that is connected to one of the outrigger posts of it, but there is a wall kit for this as well that sends you 2 more legs for this, and you can enclose the entire thing, which also stakes it to the ground, so it makes it stronger in the wind.